Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris here with Inside the U. Thanks for stopping by. Day 5 is now in the books for the Miami Hurricanes. We weren't able to be out here the last 2 days, so it was good being back out here once again. Today, they were in shells, so not full pads quite yet, but they're going to have a day off tomorrow, and then by the end of the week, definitely I expect this team to be in full pads for fall practices here. So today, a lot of talk is going to be about the offensive line because 4 players and offensive line coach Alex Mirabal spoke after practice, but I want to kind of pivot a different way because I was wanting to watch the wide receivers and speak about that group today. Also the linebackers, get into that. I will definitely provide some notes and thoughts on the offensive line as well, because there were some things that stood out to me. But with the wide receivers, I think there's certainly a lot of question marks with this group. You know, can they perform at a high level? Who are going to be their top guys? I think obviously you're pointing to CJ Daniels, the transfer from LSU. He's a guy that's taken on this leadership role, has experience, had a 1,000-yard season at Liberty, coming off an injury. And for me, these 3 days that I've been able to be out here and watch drills, I just feel like CJ's got to make a little bit more plays than what I've seen. You know, he's going to be given opportunities, and he did have a nice catch today. I don't want to ignore that. He had a nice catch on a one-on-one situation, deep post over the middle, catching a nice touchdown pass, which was great to see. But I just think there needs to be more of that for CJ. You know, some on-field production is going to be important for him. Again, I expect him to be one of their top guys in terms of opportunities, especially early on in the season. And I think that's how I kind of view the wide receiver group in general, is that these guys that kind of been around here, I'm going to speak about JoJo Trader and Ray Joseph for example, and then CJ, I think those are going to be your primary 3 guys at least starting the season. Now, how does it look? How do they perform? How do they produce against Notre Dame? I think is going to be a big factor in terms of their overall snap counts. That's always a big thing that we keep track of in terms of playing time as it goes on. And we'll see if things change or pivot off of that. But I think there is a potential for that. However, just with those other 2 guys, let's talk with JoJo. JoJo, to me, you guys have heard me speak about him. I just really believe in his abilities. And it's clear to see. You know, you come out here, to me, he looks the best in terms of one-on-one situations, the most fluid, athletic. You watch him, it doesn't take long to be able to see, you know, his talents or how good he is or what his potential could be here in year 2 after not producing much, dealing with a little bit of an agony injury last season. So there's definitely potential and possibilities for JoJo, and I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think for JoJo, he just has to continue to make big plays, and I think that's going to be an opportunity with Carson Beck. Watching Georgia, the times I did last year, Carson's willing to throw the ball downfield, willing to give his wide receivers opportunities to make big plays. And to me, the one who can benefit the most from that play style from Carson is JoJo. And again, I think he's going to get opportunities like I mentioned with CJ. And I think it's important for him to take advantage of it. I've seen positive signs so far, and we'll see if he can kind of build on it. But with him, it's got to be that consistent production and really understanding his opportunity, his role, and really understanding the expectations for him this year. It's a big year for him. Even though it's only year 2, he has a chance to have a big year. And then the next guy with Ray. Look, I understand a lot of the talk that's out there, and it's not that I pay attention to everything that everybody is saying. It's quite the opposite. But I know that there's a lot of people skeptical of Ray and what kind of season he can have for this team. For me, I'm not there. I still believe in him. You know, I think he could be a productive guy. You know, I watch him out at practice. I think he makes plays when we're able to be out here. I think he looks good. His crossing route stuff over the middle, the catch and run stuff, I think he could really excel in. I like his speed. That's evident. I think he can make plays. I just think he could be a high producer for this team. But we'll see. I definitely understand that. I'm going to say we'll see on a lot of guys. But for me, just with Ray, I'm not at the point where I'm doubting him like I see a lot of other people, hear a lot of other people say with them. And I understand some of that. I just believe in his work ethic. I believe in his abilities. And I just believe he's going to be given opportunities. Again, with these guys, they've got to take advantage early on in the season because there are other guys they could turn towards if they want to kind of move off a certain guy. And a guy like JoJo and a guy like Ray, they've not really established themselves as automatic producers here based on opportunity and other things since they've been here. And even CJ, you know, he's the leader. He's also talked about his leadership, how that's grown, but that he just got here. I just think with those guys, there's not this proven track record with any of these guys here at UM. So I do think it could open the door. If these guys don't produce early in the season, it could open the door for other guys. So who are the other guys they could turn towards? Look, over the summer they brought in two transfers with experience. Tony Johnson from Cincinnati had half dozen touchdowns last year. He's a guy that could potentially work out of the slot. Certainly he's an option, a veteran guy. I think he's made play when I've been able to be out here. He's made catches. He kind of does his thing. It makes sense. When you watch him, he does make plays and does catch the ball. Also the other guy, Keelan Marion. He's an interesting guy. He has excelled in the return game. And then as a receiver, he was a number 3 guy last year at BYU, comes from UConn. He hasn't had one of these big years. Like CJ Daniels didn't have the year he would have liked last year at LSU, but he did have a 1,000-yard season at Liberty, whereas Keelan hasn't had that productive season yet. He's been solid, steady, kind of in the rotation. And for me, what I've seen, I just haven't seen the playmaking ability when I've been able to be out here. So looking for Keelan to make plays, kind of excel in these drills, these one-on-ones. We also are able to watch half line, which is basically a 3-on-3 situation, and just want to see more playmaking ability from him. But again, guy with experience, same way with Tony, guys with experience, they could be elevated, but I certainly think that they're going to continue to press. And obviously they didn't come here to be reserves. They want to have top roles on this team. So certainly they're going to continue to work hard to try to earn those roles, and they've got to produce when they get their opportunity. Another couple of guys to pay attention to that have impressed me, starting with freshman Josh Moore. He's the biggest wide receiver that they have on the roster. We've been out here 3 days. In all 3 days, I've seen him catch long touchdown passes, over 40-yard touchdown passes on either one-on-ones or the half-line drill. Did it again today. I think he's a guy, if he continues to make plays, and because of his size, he just brings something unique to the receiver room, but definitely a guy to keep an eye on. But I like what I've seen from Josh so far. And then obviously, Malachi Tony, he's made plays there. And I think the best way to kind of describe Malachi when I watch him out here, just very fluid. He's fluid in his movements. He's quick, he gets the ball, he gets open. I like the separation he creates. I think he could certainly be an impact player for Miami, depending on the role he has, which also could include being involved in the return game. I think he'd be a very good option at punt returner, for example, and he has been working there. But I think that just watching those two guys, it's interesting when we mention those guys, because there's guys in front of them, guys with more experience. So we'll see how things kind of play out. But I think both of them bring something different, something a little bit more unique to the receiver room, which is what you want to have as a receiver trying to break through in rotation, really, at all positions. You want to be able to provide something different or be an addition to the group, additional skill set, whatever that might be, to a group, to a unit. So a coach can kind of feel like they could really use you. And I think both those two guys are guys that you have to keep in mind. I think the thing that'll be interesting is watching to see what the rotation is going to look like. Look, last year they had 4 guys primarily at wide receiver, game in and game out. That's all they rolled out with. I just mentioned a bunch of names here. Rolling out 7 names. Those are just the ones that I mentioned. I didn't mention Nikar or Chance Robinson, a couple other guys, or Dalen Upshaw. There are other guys trying to join the mix as well. But what will the receiver room look like in terms of cutting it off? Will they just go with 6, kind of a 3-and-3, kind of a first unit, second unit? That could be a possibility as they try to work out who are really their top producers. Or it could even be shortened even more, maybe 4 or 5. So definitely that's why I think this receiving group is so interesting to watch in fall camp. It's important for all of these guys to be able to be out here each and every day and really, earn the trust of the coaching staff, provide that consistency, because you got to be trusted at that position in particular, because you don't get a lot of opportunities. When the ball comes your way, you got to be able to make plays. And thinking about the punt returners, there was a drill that they were doing at last practice that we were out here. And Donovan Varner, analyst here, he was throwing the ball to him and kind of playing catch with the guy, and a ball, with where we're at on the sideline in the indoor facility, it's really tight. So we have to definitely kind of stay out of everybody's way. And there was a ball I kind of, out of the corner of my eye, kind of noticed it. Don't want to get hit with the ball I'm not paying attention to. And the guy was actually throwing it to Donovan and obviously snagged it, no problem. And I just, when I knew it was Donovan catching the ball, I wasn't worried. He still has those skills. So that was kind of cool to see out here. Another couple things just kind of cool to see out here. The ACC Network, they made their stop on their road tour today. Eric McLean was here, and also Roddy Jones. I spoke with them briefly afterwards. I wanted to get their take, but they were actually just departing, so I didn't get a chance to do that. But good to see them out here. It's just that time of year. as everything gets going. So definitely stay tuned to see their reports when the Miami section comes out on the ACC network, so pay attention to that. A couple other quick notes I want to mention. Pay attention to linebackers today. Really enjoy watching that group. I think that's another group that's in a competition for playing time. You know, you got Raul Aguirre. He's excited to kind of get more playing time and be one of the top guys, top linebackers on the team. Wesley Basaint back for another year. And obviously, I think all eyes on kind of curious what Muhammad Torrey's going to bring, transfer from Rutgers, coming off the injury, and just to see how he looks. I'll have some video of him so you can get a chance to see what you think of him. But I think, you know, those are the three main guys as I see it at this point. And I can see things kind of rotating in. You got Jalen Alderman, who's earned some playing time here. But I think primarily they'll go with a couple guys and, again, try to kind of mix in that third. I do see that happening with that group. And just a few quick notes on the offensive line. Again, Mirabal spoke, as well as four players: Markel Bell, James Brockermeyer. You also had Matt McCoy and Ryan Rodriguez. So definitely stay tuned to the channel, see what they had to say. But kind of recapping a little bit, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me with Mirabal was, you know, I asked him about the six-man rotation they had last year, and he kind of commented about that. And really feels like that they're not necessarily looking to do that again, but if a guy earns it, they're willing to do it, and that makes sense to me. You don't typically see that, and that's why I thought it was interesting last year, and it worked out well, you know, kind of having that six-man rotation with what they did there. So we'll see. He's also very comfortable. He said he's very comfortable and confident and in the depth that they have with the offensive line. It really feels like they got 3 or 4 guys that they won't start at Miami, but could start at other ACC schools. He said about half of the ACC schools. So you're talking about guys like that don't project as starters. Tommy Kinsler's one. You know, if Rodriguez doesn't start, he would be a guy. With McCoy kind of starting at left guard, which at this point, I would say McCoy's going to start, but I think Rodriguez can push for it. I think the biggest difference with those two guys, so when you look at them, seeing it today, seeing him kind of work, it's very obvious. McCoy, just the size factor, the size difference, the advantage he has over Rodriguez there at left guard, I think that really stands out, literally. It's really obvious to see. Also Matt, I thought Matt did a good job talking afterwards. He's not a guy that we get to talk to very often, but just very mature, just really seems like a pro, and really excited for this year. It should be worth noting that last year, Mirabal revealed that McCoy was dealing with a torn labrum that he suffered in fall camp, played through it all season long, and then had surgery the day after the final game of the year. Matt said it didn't really bother him. He learned to kind of work with it, but certainly you figure surgery, and he feels better now. That maybe, you know, obviously you're looking for him to have a better season, more experience, but also healthy going into it. So that's good to hear from him. Ryan Rodriguez had a chance to talk to him at media day. Probably saw the interview if you haven't seen it yet, but he talked about really one of the things that he wanted to really improve on was his flexibility. So with that, I asked him, how's it been 5 days in? Have you noticed your flexibility improvement out here on the field? And he says definitely, and he says the biggest thing is when they move laterally, but you know, when they pull with their guards, you know, when they have to get out of their, you know, their stance and move to the left or right, whatever that might be. That's where he notices his flexibility, and he says he's got to be able to move. So that's good to see. That I always like when guys say that they improve physically, and then what does it actually look like? How does it translate on the field? Just like if a guy gets bigger, you know, how does it look? You know, whatever position group that might be. I spoke on Jordan Lau, you know, up to 205, for example, at running back. How does it affect him? You know, all of these guys, how does it affect them? You know, where does it affect them at their respective positions? So good to see, good to hear. Ryan feels really good about his flexibility there. And more on the offensive line, we actually got to see that combo blocking drill that we saw a lot in the spring with offensive linemen typically paired up with a tight end or just two offensive linemen going up against a couple of defensive linemen in a fast-paced drill. They go on 3 stations, kind of left, middle, right. They kind of work, and they just kind of go rep after rep. That was good to see, and I think in general, with what I saw, I thought the offensive line got the upper hand on a lot of those drills. So it was good to see. The guys were really into it. Mirabal said that, look, they're physical every day in practice, and whether it's shells or full pads or whatever it might be. But I thought there was a little bit more physicality in today's drills that we saw compared to the other ones, so that was good to see, just kind of elevating. Again, I can't believe it's already day 5. They certainly got some time before the opener on August 31st, which, once again, players, coaches, Coach Mirabal, nobody wants to talk about the opener. They're really focused on fall camp. They defer all questions. They don't want to talk about Notre Dame. They understand certainly everybody understands the respect that they have for that program. It's nothing like that, but they're just really focused on fall camp, kind of moving along to the next day. And when it's time, when it's closer, they'll talk about Notre Dame. They'll get more focused on their actual opponent for the opener. But that's it for me. Luckily, I was able to beat the storm here. It definitely looked like it was a bit dark, but it didn't rain, so that's good to see. But yeah, a day off on Tuesday from the team. They're going to take a break, so it's 5 days on, a day off, and they'll resume on Wednesday. Hopefully we're able to be back out here, provide a little bit more notes, but definitely stay tuned. I'll have some video clips of what I got today, especially the linebackers. Got a lot of stuff on the linebackers. You'll get a chance, but definitely drop in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing what you guys have to say, what you guys think as well. So thanks for commenting, thanks for watching. Always appreciate the positive comments that everybody gives. So thank you, have a good rest of the day, and take care.